Today on CityCast Boise, as we head into these chilly months, the spring season may feel out of sight, but Master Gardener Gretchen Anderson joins host Emma Arnold to tell us why now is a good time to prepare your garden for the spring and easy steps you can take to see the best results. It's Tuesday, November 7th. I'm Evelyn Avitia, in for Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about.
Hi, Gretchen. Welcome back.
Oh, it's so good to be with you again, Emma.
I'm glad you're here because, first of all, I can't even move past it, but you started us out right before we hit record by telling us Boise has a really bad rat problem that people should know about.
Yes, I will say maybe not Boise, more like Eagle. Yeah, I think maybe it is in Boise, but I've read all the accounts on Nextdoor about rat sightings in Eagle. And I've lived here long enough. We've never had rats. You've lived here forever and you know the same thing, right?
I'm trying to think if I've ever downtown seen a rat or even out in the country towards Kuna or something. I don't feel like I've ever seen a rat. But now on Nextdoor, people are saying they have infestations. And you saw that somebody had trapped 13?
13 of them with just one of those big old, wooden rat traps. You use the small ones for mice, but you have to get a big one for rats and throwing peanut butter on it. And he's trapped 13 of them. And now that I think about my gardening situation, I was pulling fruit and vegetable out of my garden that had been nibbled on. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I was feeding them all summer long.
Same over here. I usually let the fruit drop and I just kind of let it mulch back in, and now I'm probably need to pick all that up. And okay, well, good to know. Good to know if you have fruit trees and stuff, and maybe pull stuff up so that you're not encouraging them to hang around because they might come inside like the mice do in the fall.
Yeah, sure.
Well, good to know. I hate that you told me that, but also I'm glad that you told me that.
I was giving you a news tip. I was just giving you a news tip, okay?
I just want to know, what's the most essential thing people should be doing right now in their garden to ensure a great start in the spring?
Actually, I will tell you is to clean up that fruit that you let drop on the ground. Because what happens is each type of fruit or vegetable has its own host of pests and critters that it attracts. And if you leave them in the ground, those pests and critters can overwinter in that fruit. They have stuff to eat, they can live there, and then they come back up with a vengeance in the springtime. So the one thing you want to do is clean up as much as you can. And right now, Emma, do you know what the earliest possible average frost date is for our area?
No, I have no idea. I was hoping you would tell me.
Yeah. So the earliest average frost date for our area is October 10th. So we've passed it already. And we haven't had any, below freezing temperatures here. I'm biding my time. I still have all my tomato plants out there. Rats be darned. and hoping to get a few more ripe tomatoes. And as soon as I see something that says, oh, it's going to freeze on this night, I'll pull everything in, green tomatoes and all. And I will leave my tomato plants just sitting there and let them decay right there. But mulch and work the soil around them. And we can get into that a little bit more. But that's the one thing you want to do is bring in all your produce. Don't leave anything, even leaves down below those fruit trees that you have, because you never know what's hiding underneath.
Here, I thought I was doing my peach tree this big favor, and my apple tree, I leave the fruit, it rots. It's but no, it's bad, I'm finding out. Well, good to know. I will definitely be picking that up now. For new gardeners, can you explain why mulching and winterizing a garden bed for winter is so important, isn't it?
So, yes. And I prefer to, if I have to till the soil at all in my beds, I'll do it in the winter time or right before the winter time. And then mulch or put a layer of compost on the top of it. And what that does is, in the wintertime, the the rains and the snow and all that stuff will work that new soil or that mulch into your garden. And there's nothing better than organic material for your garden beds. So that's, pure and simple, that's the reasoning for that. The other thing you want to think about is, Gretchen, I always till in the spring. Well, what you're doing is you're disturbing those microorganisms that have set up over the winter. And really, you don't want to do that. You want to get all your beds ready to plant in the fall.
Are you a cover crop gal? Do you do any cover crops during the winter?
I don't, but there are certainly a lot of people with bigger garden spaces who do cover crops. And we talk about that a little bit on our Facebook page, 2C Master Gardeners. So if any of the listeners want more information on cover crops and their benefits from that, they can do that. What I do is take the leaves from our yard, because we have a lot of leaves, and that's organic gold. And I'll take a lot of those leaves and just, after I've worked my soil and it's ready for next spring, I'll put the leaves on top of my garden beds, because over the winter, those break down. It composts. Now, some of them I'll have to take off in the spring, but for the most part, I can just work them in the spring.
Any soil amendments we should be using? And also, how do we know? How would we find out?
Oh, yeah. The fall, autumn is a perfect time to have your soil tested. And you can just reach out to any extension office, whether it's the Ada County Extension Office or the Canyon County Extension Office. It's best if you are in Ada County to go with Ada County and so forth. And they can direct you to getting soil tested. Sometimes they'll run soil testing and you can take it right to the extension office. Other times they'll refer you to the organization who does it for us. And what that does is it tells you if you get your soil tested, and trust me, having it done professionally is money well spent, rather than wasting your money on those little soil kits that you can buy at your local garden store or off the everything store. So what you want to do is find out, are you high in alkaline? Do you need to acidify your soil, or vice versa? Is it too acidic? Do you need to have it be more alkaline? Our area is known for its alkaline soil, and that's why potatoes and onions grow so well here. Sometimes we can get a little high on the alkaline side.
What about pest and disease management? Now I know this trick of picking up our fruit and stuff around the bottom of our trees, but is there anything else we should be doing during the fall to prevent problems from carrying over?
I think it's all part and parcel of getting your beds ready for spring, because you've cleaned everything up and you've maybe mulched on top of the garden beds, and that's going to prevent a lot of the critters from coming back in the springtime. Also, cover crops you mentioned are great if you have a big space, but if you'll remember back to spring, how I explained to you that it's really important to rotate your crops. So if you planted tomato plants in certain areas of your property, make certain that you don't put them in the same place the next year. Give it a year, because if you had hornworms that eat tomatoes, you will have them again in that spot, because they could very well overwinter in that spot. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And I followed your advice this year with my squash, because last fall you said to move them. Not a single squash bug this year.
Oh,
so you did it. You fixed it.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Move your crops around. If you had squash bugs this year, move them to another place next year.
You mentioned bringing in green tomatoes, but what do people do with that other than fried green tomatoes?
Good question. But fried green tomatoes are delicious, especially with a nice glass of wine. So anyhow, what I've learned in the past is, one year I decided to put all the methods of ripening tomatoes to the test. People would say, put them in a brown paper bag and throw an apple in there, because it puts off ethylene and that will ripen them. Oh no, not an apple, throw a banana in there. And so I tried it all. I rolled them up in newspaper. I stacked them in newspaper and cardboard. I hung them in the garage on my husband's bicycle upside down. Take a whole plant, hang it upside down. And
I can just picture him walking out and seeing that and being like,
not again.
Master
Not
gardener
again.
stuff.
And then I also did what I normally do, and that was put them on the windowsills and let those green tomatoes just ripen. And what I learned was it doesn't matter what you do. They're all going to ripen in the same amount of time. Unless you leave them in a cold garage, then they ripen more slowly. But I just put them on my windowsill, and as they ripened, I would use them. And they're delicious. People will say, oh my God, what do I do with all the green tomatoes?
Yeah, I always put them in the cellar and forget about them. But this is the year that I remember.
Don't put them in the cellar.
I like the windowsill thing because then you're going to see them. They're going to ripen.
To that point, tomatoes are nightshade, so they'll ripen regardless. They don't have to be in the sun. I just put them in the windowsill because that, like I said, that's the flat space I have.
What advice can you give us about fall watering? I'm always so nervous because I've heard, water your trees a bunch in the fall, but then I've heard actually you don't want to saturate the roots too much. So what can you tell us about fall watering?
Good question. So in many of our areas here around the Treasure Valley and beyond, the water season has ended, unfortunately. I know where I am, there's no more irrigation. So what I will do is give the trees a good drink before winter. I really will. And, you just don't want those trees to go without. I haven't heard anything about you don't want to saturate, but you want to give them a good drink. Lawn, you're good. If you can't water now, just keep mowing, but actually increase the height of your lawnmower, because now is when you can decrease. You can have a short lawn right now because we're not in the heat of the summer. We always say mow it so that it's a long length in the heat of the summer, because then actually it shades, each blade of grass shades one another. So now you can have a short, beautiful manicured lawn if you so desire.
Okay, here's something I've found very tricky. What are your recommendations for pruning and trimming in Boise during the fall? I do not have this down.
Well, first of all, I'll give you this advice. If you need to prune something, first go online and Google it. Google what you have. So I would say grapevines, pruning, and then I would put .edu. And then what will come up is a university recommended technique for pruning. And it will also discuss the time frame of pruning. Most trees, you want to prune them when they're dormant. So that's like late January, that's when they go dormant. Or when you can be assured that they're dormant. So you'll find me out pruning my Asian pear, my cherry tree, my plum trees, and my apple tree in early February, late January, that sort of thing.
That is so great to know. I've been real hard on myself this week for not getting the trees trimmed, but there you go. I'm way too early.
You are so smart.
Okay, before we let you go, I want to ask you this. So I had read that the Farmer's Almanac is predicting a very wintry winter, a very wet, cold, wintry winter for Boise. And some beekeepers I know said that they are also predicting the same thing because the bees are putting honey really close together in the hives, which apparently the old guy beekeepers I know say that can mean you're in for a rough winter. You're my Farmer's Almanac, Gretchen. Have you noticed fuzzier caterpillars? Anything that makes you think we might be in for a rough winter?
Oh, heck, I haven't seen anything just yet, but I'll bring it on. I want to ski. So, that's a bonus. And we need the water. We always need the water here. So I'm good with that, and bring it on.
Spoken like a true ski bunny.
What can I say?
Anything else we should know before we go?
You might want to write down in your garden journal, which I hope everybody has, how your garden fared, or your yard, how the grass did this summer, how your trees did. And then when things ripened and when you had to bring them in, or when the flowers bloomed and when you had to cut them for cut flowers, that sort of thing, because that just gives you a roadmap going forward. So it's a good time right now to think about that and write it down.
I love how organized you are, and I aspire to it daily. I want to be that good of a gardener. Well, Gretchen, thank you so much as always. It's such a delight, and I hope you have the best ski year you've ever had.
No, thank you, Emma.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. Tomorrow is Election Day, so have fun voting if you haven't already. And be sure to follow our Hey Boise newsletter this week for results. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our Basque Block faves, and then be sure to tune in Thursday morning for our analysis of local election results. Bye!